How does a person answer why something happens?
When you look at the findings in different fields,
scant is the part of life in which we live.
To attain the highest values.
Did your job at Microsoft at some point start to feel like work?
Absolutely. You know, there were parts where I was out of my sorts. When I first became a manager, I was in my mid-20s, and at Microsoft at the time, you know, to be a manager, there's a very high bar. Like if they're going to give you people, it was a big thing. And I was given a team. Most of my teams in my career are not huge; they were small because as a product manager, you know, most of the work is done by engineering. But so you scale through your people and your relationships, really. So my first team, 5 people, and you know, they were all much more senior. They were all, you know, 10 to 20 years older than I was. Several had 10 plus years at the company. So they had been working since like Windows 95. Okay. Yeah. I was like in awe of these people. And I'm like, what the heck do I do? And so that was one case where I was just up against the level of my thinking, where it was again a chance for me to experience how much I was in my head and how much I was relying on, you know, my intellect or smarts or cunning or having answers. And I hit that barrier where I wasn't the smartest person. I wasn't the subject matter expert. I did have certain skills that I started to trust, but it was really sort of a lightning rod to, can I trust more and experience what management can be like when you aren't the most capable person? Like what is the value I can provide? So it was a bit of an existential crisis of how am I going to do this? So that was my first experience. And I've talked to people who have run companies, small companies, big companies. And something I've heard several times is the 2 hardest parts in a career are, number one is being a CEO. No, I've never been a CEO. I have my own company now, but it's me. Okay, it's me, CEO of one. Yeah. And I've run plenty of teams. But what I've heard from people running companies is that idea of you're the CEO, paychecks on the line, strategy on the line, you know, the ultimate buck stops with you is the hardest point in a career. The second point is the first time you manage people. First time you manage people. And so that was the first point where, you know, it got hard. You know, it got really hard. In looking back and in working with mentors, including a mentor who gave me that first job, they gave me the job because they saw I was genuinely interested in human beings, personal growth. And so they bet on me because of that, because they saw how I was operating before. Now, I didn't quite understand all that, but others saw in me something I couldn't quite see in myself, which is, again, important. Like, the reason mentors and coaches are valuable, often they can spot something that maybe you can't see. And so that was the biggest challenge. There were many others. You know, there were problems where I just, I spent a year and a half working on a product, almost 2 years, we thought would change the world. I can say it now, and most people listening are going to laugh, because as far as we were concerned, it would have been, you know, what Skype was. Now, Skype had already come out, okay? Skype had already gotten traction, but it was an advertising funded screen and voice over IP product that did screen sharing. So it was about sharing your screen with voice, not just voice. So Skype had come out, we had done this, we had a working product. I was the product manager, everything from branding, positioning, and core product direction. We had this whole thing. We demoed in front of Bill Gates. We did a whole bunch of stuff. Product never saw the light of day. Now I can sort of point my finger to the technology making its way into what's now Microsoft Teams. Maybe some code exists. I don't know. Probably not, but I hope. I dream. But there was that experience of putting your heart, soul into something you believe in. A year and a half. Team and you know, getting the plug pulled. So that was hard as well.
I think the really great challenges. And just to reiterate the first one you made there, it's such a huge leap that a lot of people, I don't know if people talk enough about this, that when you do manage people, that leap you have to make where you're suddenly responsible for their success and their growth and their career, and how hard that actually is. Yeah.
It is because in many cases, now my bias, I've coached a lot of people in different industries, but mostly in the world of tech. And for a lot of people, promotions are based on competence. I mean, you're competent, you're a great engineer, a great product planner, a great business planner, a great product manager, and you get promoted, you do great work. And as best you can, you're influencing well and building good relationships. But those promotions don't mean you understand the art of leadership or the science of management or any of those things.
Yeah.
And these are also often overlooked at even the highest levels from a training development standpoint. And in spite of the best of intentions, and I have friends who run training and development at some of the top companies, including Microsoft, amazing effort, deep caring, great training, but it's often not enough and not as integrated as it needs to be. And more importantly, just the level of conversation and culture in the teams tend to ignore a lot of the human dimension in service of right decisions, great technical horsepower, right? And that stuff.
Compliance. I could talk for ages about learning cultures, and that is definitely the topic of another podcast.